Today my guest is Darcy Lussier. Darcy, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, David.
Where are you from?
From Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada.
What? You're Canadian?
I am.
That's
I'm
awesome.
Canadian, yes.
I love Canadians. I'm from just north of Canada.
Just north of Canada?
Detroit, Michigan. Just more north of Windsor, Ontario. You think I'm making this up?
No, I know, yeah. That's the lowest, I think that's like the lowest point in Canada or something like
that. Is it? It might be.
Something like that, yeah.
So what do you do?
So I'm the Microsoft practice lead at Online Business Systems, based out of Winnipeg. It's a company though that, while we're based out of Winnipeg, we have offices in Toronto, in Calgary, in Edmonton, in Portland, in Minneapolis, and in Orange County, California. So
okay.
It's pretty widespread.
Nice. Let's talk about local storage, especially on the phone,
Yes.
or other occasionally connected systems. I just saw your talk a little while ago over here at the MVP Summit. And what if I've got a system that's like a phone? I've got a couple of options for storing data, persistent data, right? What are some of those options?
Well, so with Windows Phone 7 specifically, because it's Silverlight, it also has isolated storage built in, and that's that idea that there's a certain amount of storage on the device that your application can use basically however it wants to store files, pictures. It's its own little sandbox and playground. Now on a PC, if you load up a Silverlight application in a web browser, the domain for that all of your Silverlight applications come from get 1 meg of shared space. If it's an application that's installed on the client computer, that jumps up to 25 meg.
There's a Silverlight application that's running outside the browser.
That's right, yeah. If you right click and you say install to desktop, and there's the whole thing where it's really loading it in the browser, but basically it acts as if it's a desktop application.
Okay, so this is essentially the same technology, but there are different limits depending upon where it's
different limits.
1 megabyte if it's a Silverlight app running inside the browser. Or what is it?
25
megabytes
installed
if it's
locally, yeah.
Installed locally. And on the phone, the limit is.
So now on the phone, it's interesting because there's actually no limit with an asterisk at the end there, because instead of having a dedicated space, there's no actual quota for Silverlight applications running on Windows Phone 7. Now there is an amount of space that's dedicated to the operating system that the operating system will let you touch on the device. But that still is the majority of the memory on the phone you have access to. So you could have one application, in theory, just use up a lot of that if you wanted to. So obviously there's warnings in that built into the phone though. So
yeah, so you're basically limited by the amount of memory, physical memory on the phone.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, all right. And then you also could store things out in the cloud, or you could store things through.
You could definitely use the cloud, web services. Of course, the thing with any application running on a device like a phone, for instance, is that to take advantage of those non-device based options, you need connectivity. You need to be able to know that you either have a Wi-Fi connection or a cellular connection to do that. So if you don't have that, then you're back looking locally. How do I store information on the device itself?
Sure.
Yeah.
They call those occasionally connected systems.
Oh, yes, exactly.
It's okay to be sometimes communicating with the cloud, but at some point you're going to lose that connection. You don't want your app to fail.
Exactly. You want it to be able to still keep going and store its data.
Okay, so I've decided that I've got this application. I want to store some data locally.
Yeah.
What are my options?
So there are actually a few options. Probably the easiest one is to just use XML-based storage, and that's where if you have any information or settings or whatever it is that you want your phone to store, you just write to that isolated storage as if you were writing an XML file with the native I/O libraries that come with .NET Framework. Okay. So you create an XML file, you save it there, and then when your app needs that data, it just loads the XML file back up and then accesses the data. But that's sort of a quick and dirty in a way, because you're dealing now with a document. Your code needs to understand how to go through and get the data that's in there. It's especially for developers that are used to, say, more of an object-oriented type approach, or are used to using proper DBMS like SQL Server to actually store their data. It can feel a little bit, I won't say dirty, but it can definitely
it's
feel
a little bit clunky. There's no abstraction layer in front of it. You have to build that if you want to do. And it's not, I don't know if it's real scalable. I mean, if you start doing very large XML documents storing a lot of data.
Well, and the other thing too is when you start thinking about things like encryption and if you want features like lazy loading, etc., an XML document is just that, and you're going to have to write everything else. So what a better option would be is to use some sort of, whether it's a library, a framework, or a product, to actually be able to let you do that. Luckily, there are some that are actually available out there. The first one I guess I'd mention is, it's called Windows Phone 7 Database. It's actually up on Codeplex, and it's a project you can compile, and it's kind of one step above that XML file. What it does is it gives you sort of the illusion that, oh, I'm actually playing with, a database, and I can create tables, and I can take my objects, and I can, instead of having to take them and write out the values to an XML file, I can actually just say, oh, hey, database table, I want to save this type of object, and it'll put it in storage. You can pull that information back really easily. You can use link queries against it. It supports encryption and lazy loading, so it's for a free option, and especially for applications that don't need a ton of features or a very complex data solution. It's definitely a great option. After that, though, then there's a few other different products that are available. There's another Codeplex project called Sterling, and that's actually written by some Wintellect developers, and it's also a Codeplex project that you can download, and that one is, I believe, for free as well. There's also a product called Purst, and Purst is done by a company, I believe it's either MC Object or Mick Object, but we were laughing in there about how is that a fast food? Yeah, is that a fast food database?
Just all that with nougat?
Nice. Hopefully the Purst guys are going to laugh at that.
That's a commercial.
Yeah.
That's a commercial product.
But that's a commercial product, and the way it works, from what I read, is it's a $395 license. And once you buy it, though, then you can distribute it very similar to some of the control suites that are out there.
Okay.
And then there's also a product I just became aware of recently called NinjaDB, and that is, if the viewers know of Derek Whitaker, who's also an MVP, he's written, he does the Dimecast.net website and does videos about various technology things. He just wrote a Windows Phone 7 app and had used NinjaDB, and he was saying it was a phenomenal tool, worked very well. However, it's a bit pricier. I believe he said it was around the $2,000 mark or something like that.
That's a lot for Windows Phone 7.
So that's a lot for Windows Phone 7.
How many people have made $2,000 on
Oh, exactly. Now for him, though, a lot of it was in how you could get in and do things like around threading, more complex computation things that it would support. So again, depending on what your needs are for your application, there's a lot of different options out there. The reality is that we don't have anything from Microsoft around a data store. There is no SQL CE out there that we can use right now on Windows Phone 7. Luckily, the community and some of the vendors out there are stepping in and filling that gap.
Are you building Windows Phone 7 apps today?
I am. I have my one app claimed to fame on the marketplace is a little flashcard math game that I wrote so that my daughter can play math on my phone.
Does it have storage?
You know what, it doesn't, but that's something that I'm working on for the next version.
Which option did you choose?
Well, you know what, I'm probably going to go with just the Windows Phone 7 database, the Codeplex one. Mainly because the type of things I'm going to be storing are very simple. Things like, what was your fastest time and how many questions did you do in that. Yeah, it's not a very complex type of data that I'm saving. But if I was looking for more commercial apps and there was a little bit more, higher processing in that, then I'd probably look at something a little bit more advanced. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have a blog that you want to...
I do, yeah. If people want to read my blog, it's on geekswithblogs.net/D Lussier. It's Lussier. Or they can just Google Darcy from Winnipeg, and I'm sure that they'll find some links up there for me from that. So.
Excellent. Darcy,
yes.
Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much for your time, David. Appreciate it. The MVP community, friends and technology.